Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Dr. Tom O'Brien. And I don't know about you guys, but if you're suffering from any type of brain fog that you might be getting in the afternoon, I'm hoping that today Dr. Tom will have somewhat of a cure for our brain fog and maybe our lack of energy or just having clear thinking in the afternoon. He wrote the book, You Can Fix Your Brain. So I'm just really excited about this topic. I think it's super important, especially as we begin to age, that we get in touch with this topic. Dr. O'Brien is considered a Sherlock Holmes for chronic disease and teaches that recognizing and addressing the underlying mechanisms that activate an immune response is the map to the highway towards better health. He holds teaching faculty positions. And I want to jump on real quick here because he is in Italy and I just want to get with him and get this topic started. How are you doing today, Dr. O'Brien?
Oh, very well. Thank you. Very well.
How's Italy?
Beautiful. Just spectacular. Really quite an experience to see how people live differently in other parts of the world.
Wow. And so have you been out and about and done any adventurous excursions?
You know, we have. We just got back yesterday for a couple of weeks. We were on a sailboat on the Tyrrhenian Sea and went to the island of Ostia, I think it is, or something. And then down the coast, western coast of Italy to Rome, and spent a few days in Rome, and then hopped in a car and went to Florence and spent a couple of days there, and now have come back into the north of Italy, near Lake Garda. It's just been a wonderful trip.
Sounds fabulous. Well, we're hoping to go there someday. We're going to go to Ireland this year.
Ah, nice. My wife spent 12 years in Ireland and she just loves it. Every time we go, we both enjoy it quite a bit.
Wow, I'm definitely going to have to pick her brain later. But for now, the topic is the brain. And this afternoon, I was having that law around maybe right before the podcast where you just have that drop where your brain gets just a little foggy and you're just a little sleepy. What's that all about?
Well, there are a number of triggers that set that off. Usually between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, it's a blood sugar crash. Usually that's the case. Or it could be that someone's not sleeping very well and they woke up early and their body just really needs a break and because they're not really refreshed. You know, my friend Dave Asprey has a great quote. He says, you can't kick ass if you're tired. So, that's how important sleep is. It's really
you know what? It's because I already kicked ass all morning that I'm tired. I get up at 4:30 every morning and teach boot camp and do personal training.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So it's later in the day for you by the time you hit mid-afternoon because you've been up so early in the morning.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes you just need to have a little bit of, I think a short 20 minutes usually is the best for me.
Well, that's marvelous that you know what works and what doesn't work, you know. But for many of us, paper came out recently that identified that about 10% of people by the age of 65 say they have mild cognitive impairment. That's the earliest stage of diagnosable Alzheimer's, about 10%. But that number jumps to over 50% by the age of 85. So what happens in 20 years to create a 5-fold increase? I mean, are people doing things so differently after they turn 65 than before? And the answer is no. It's just that the boulder has been rolling downhill and it goes faster and faster as it goes downhill. So it starts for people, unfortunately, now as children and teenagers with brain deterioration, and it's getting worse with every generation. But it's not that things have changed for people, it's that it's just getting worse faster. It exponentially is getting worse. So the earlier you can address brain dysfunction at the earliest stages, the more likely you are to taper off that downward slope and eventually get it going back up again. But it requires a change in how we look at health, because everyone wants to know, what's the pill I can take so my brain's gonna function better, right? What's the pharmaceutical, or what's the nutrition that's going to make my brain function better? And what people have to realize, and it's going to hit you hard if you don't, that's the wrong question. The question is, how am I living my life that's causing this? And what do I have to do in changing the way I live my life? For example, they did a study of 346 pregnant women, and they collected their urine in the 8th month of pregnancy, and they measured it for 5 different phthalates. Now, phthalates are chemicals used to mold plastic, and there are hundreds of them, but they measured 5. And one of them, most people have heard of, called bisphenol A, BPA. It's in water bottles and many other things. And so they measured these 5 phthalates, and they categorized it into quartiles: the lowest quartile, the next quartile, the third quartile, and the highest quartile. And then they followed the children of those pregnancies, the offspring, and when they turned 7 years old, they did Wechsler IQ tests on them. What did they find? Now, there's not much in science that's all or every, so this was startling. It was every. Every child whose mother was in the highest quartile of phthalates in urine in pregnancy compared to the children whose mothers were in the lowest quartile of phthalates in urine in pregnancy, every child in the highest quartile, their IQs were 7 points lower than the kids in the lowest quartile. Nothing else different about these kids. 7 points. Now, 1 point difference is noticeable. 7 points is the difference between a child working really hard, getting straight A's, and a child working really hard, getting straight C's. They just don't have the neural network. They don't have the wiring for the brains to work very well, because phthalates are a toxin that inhibits neurogenesis, nerve growth. So the brains of these children never develop properly. Where do the phthalates come from? Pink lipstick.
Oh my God! No way!
Nail polish.
That's my favorite color.
Nail polish. You put nail polish on, within 3 to 5 minutes, phthalates are in your bloodstream. Well, there's no evidence that the level of phthalates that leach into the blood from nail polish harms humans. Well, that's very true. There is no evidence. But give me 20 years of this stuff, 30 years accumulating in your body, now you got a problem. So for every woman that's listening to this, who, if you're going to have a baby, if you plan in the future on having a baby, you stop today with this nail polish and you start exploring organic, phthalate-free nail polishes, and you find one that you like, and then you're fine. But stop using this commercial crap that's poisoning you, because it's poisoning your children's brains.
Wow. Wow. So,
and it's all of those little things, those little base hits that you have to do to win the ball game. There's no pill that's going to fix your brain. 2 pharmaceutical companies have shut down their Alzheimer's research divisions and laid off the scientists. They fired them. And because they've spent billions, they know they're never going to find a drug to cure Alzheimer's. Why? Well, my friend, Dr. Dale Bredesen from UCLA, he runs the Buck Institute, the Alzheimer's Research Center. He published on this many times, and he says, imagine a factory where abandoned, the windows have been kicked out, there's gang graffiti in the inside walls, there's 37 holes in the roof, and when it rains, there's puddles all over the floor. That's your brain on Alzheimer's. There are 37 things you have to fix to stop the inflammation in your brain. There is no pill that's ever going to work. So, okay, let's talk about phthalates. All right, nail polish. Guys don't wear nail polish. Really? What about shaving cream? What about your shampoos? You know,
Yeah.
it's so prevalent. If you have plastic blinds on the windows of your house, the plastic, or you have plastic chairs in your house, the plastic outgasses phthalates into the air. So it's in the dust in the air. You ever have the sun shine through a window and you see a ray of sunshine, you see the dust in the air? It's full of phthalates if you've got plastic in your house, or it's got formaldehyde if you've got kitchen cabinets or bathroom cabinets that are pressed for it because they're soaked in formaldehyde. And you're breathing this stuff and it accumulates in your body. Never before in the history of humanity have we been exposed to the level of toxins that we're exposed to now. Never. And your immune system has no way of dealing with this stuff. No way. Wow. Listen, there has been a 59% reduction in sperm count of healthy men in the last 37 years. 59%. Now, that doesn't mean anything to anybody until you learn you go sterile at 72%. And you're at 59% in 37 years. What do you think is going to happen in the next 20 years? It's all of these toxins. Many of them are called endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptors, because these chemicals bind onto your receptor sites of your cells. They're like catcher's mitt. Pitcher throws the ball to the catcher. They bind onto the receptor sites for estrogen and testosterone. Guys, that's your testicles. You make less sperm. Women, that's your breasts. That means breastfeeding can poison your baby's brain. And the list goes on and on and on of all these chemicals. It's an overwhelming topic. That's why you have to read the book, You Can Fix Your Brain, because I just walk you through this whole process and you're doing OMG. I tell everybody this. Buy the book, open it up to any page, read one paragraph. If you aren't engaged, send it back for a refund. You know, I'll give you a refund. I don't care. You know, because we have to learn, how am I living my life that's setting up all these boulders going downhill, whether they manifest as autoimmune diseases or brain dysfunction. What is it that I'm doing in my life that's causing this? And that's what you have to change. You have to stop thinking there's going to be a pill or there's going to be some nutrition or you can change your diet and fix your brain. You know, it's just not going to get the job done. Of course, it's critically important to eat the right kind of diet and take the supplements. Of course they help. Of course they do. But that was what we did in the 80s and 90s to help people. But now the toxins are so, it's 247 pounds. Now, it was the Journal of Pediatrics, the #1 journal for kids in medical journal for kids in the English language. They identified it's 247 pounds of chemicals are produced or imported into the United States per person per day. 247 pounds of chemicals every single day. If you're a family of 4, that's 200 pounds per day of chemicals that are being manufactured or imported into the US. Every child born in America today, just read the studies. Every child's got at least 200 toxic chemicals in their bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there. And many of them are neurotoxins. They inhibit brain growth and development.
Well, what can we do to start limiting this body burden and get the toxins out of our home? And how safe are our cleaning supplies? And what about shower filters?
That's really a good question, Linda. You've read the book. That's really good. It's really good. What can you do? You have to get educated, and you're going to get overwhelmed. Everybody gets overwhelmed. So that's why the subtitle of the book is You Can Fix Your Brain. The subtitle is Just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity, and sleep you've ever had. That's not a cutesy title. That's the secret to success. There's no other way that we have seen that works ever, because everybody's so busy and so overwhelmed, they can't change their lives. But if you're going to say every Tuesday night after dinner, every Sunday morning after church, whenever it is, but every week you're going to allocate 1 hour to creating a healthier environment for you and your family. Then one week you can grab the book and you say, okay, I'm gonna look up that thing now about plastic storage containers in the kitchen. Because you put your leftover chicken in a plastic storage container, the next day that chicken's got phthalates in it. And so you need glass containers in your kitchen. And give your husband the Tupperware to store nails out in the garage. But so one Tuesday night, okay, I'm going back to the book. Now, what are those websites? Okay, mileskimball.com or amazon.com. Oh, those are not, oh, I really like those. Those are nice. And you order, okay, I need 3 round ones and 4 square ones and 1 for the pie. And you pay with your credit card and hit send. It took an hour. You're done for the week. But now for the rest of your life, you will not poison your family with that small amount of toxins that accumulates. And then next week, you deal with the plastic wrap, the saran wrap. You get that stuff out of there and you go online and you look for the beeswax paper, and then the next week, you deal with the shower head and you realize, oh man, I have to get a new shower head because bacteria live in the shower head. They create a protective force field. It's called a biofilm. And they create this force field so that when you turn the shower on, the amount of bacteria, toxic bacteria that comes through the water can be 100 times more than what's in the water coming into the house. Because this stuff accumulates, especially in warmer climates. They did studies, they compared shower heads in Colorado and Hawaii, and they both had problems, but when they put the new shower heads in, the ones in Hawaii within 1 month were really bad. The ones in Colorado, it took a year for them to get really bad. So what do? Well, what you learned is, okay, I live in a hot climate. If you're in San Diego or Florida or somewhere, that means every month I've got to take the shower head off. You get a little wrench, take the shower head off, and you get a little baggie, and you fill it with white vinegar and put the shower head in there and tie it with a twisty tie and let it sit for a couple hours in white vinegar. Don't use chlorine because chlorine, bleach will fuel some nasty bacteria. They love it. They love it. So you use white vinegar. And you just have to learn all these little things, especially you get recurrent sinus infections or throat infections or ear infections, or you got problems with your eyes. Clean your shower heads. That's not the only cause of why you have those problems, but it may be a contributing factor. You just have to learn all this stuff. You can't live in la la land anymore. This place is too toxic. This planet Earth now is extremely toxic to humans. It's called the 6th extinction. Just Google the 6th extinction. And scientists at the National Academy of Science are telling us there is no technology to save humans to be on the planet in 50 to 70 years. It will be uninhabitable for humans in 50 years. These are our best scientists telling us this, and we're ignoring it, right? And there's no technology to change it. So all you can do, my opinion, all we can do is put one foot in front of the other, just trying to do a little bit better by learning new things and doing your best to protect your baby's brains. Because Einstein said this. He said, the problems we've created today cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created the problem. You have to up your game in how you think. But adults are not going to do that because we think down certain pathways. We need the next generation, the kids, thinking outside the box to fix this.
Well, since we really need to up our game, we need to be able to think, what are the warning signs of inflammation in our brain that practitioners should look for in their clients, such as forgetfulness, anxiety?
Really good questions, Linda. So the first, there's 2 ways to measure the temperature in the engine of your car, right? Some cars, a hot light comes on the dashboard. And you got to pull over really quick or that engine's going to blow up. Nobody pulls over, turns off the car, gets underneath there on the floor, finds the wire that goes to the hot light, cuts the wire, starts the car, sees the hot light's not on anymore, and then drive away thinking everything's okay. That's just ridiculous. But that's what pharmaceuticals do. There's nothing wrong with using them for a short period of time, nothing at all. But you can't live on the stuff. You have to fix the problem, right? So hot light on the dashboard or temperature gauge. Some cars have a temperature gauge that slowly starts to climb towards the red zone. Now, 1986, we had a Chrysler minivan. My kids were young. They were 6 and 3. And we were driving home from summer vacation. We lived in Chicago at the time, driving back from Michigan. And it was a 90 day, 90-degree temperature, 90% humidity, one of those hot, sticky days. We're driving down the highway going home, air conditioning's on. I'm doing 70 down the highway, kids in the back seat playing, doing something. And all of a sudden I see the temperature gauge is starting to move. And I go, uh-oh. And I just watch it. And within 15 minutes or so, it's up against the red zone. I said, oh no. My wife said, what's wrong? I said, oh, the car's overheating. Don't worry, it'll be fine. So what did I do? Turned off the air conditioning, rolled down the windows, slowed down to 55, listened to the kids complain about how hot it was, but it took a load off the engine and we made it home okay. Because I saw the warning and I took preventive action. Here's a really simple temperature gauge. The University of Pennsylvania has published many, many papers on this. It's called the smell identification test. The nerves of smell, called the olfactory nerves, good Scrabble word, but it's just the nerves of smell. They're the only nerves, and I've asked 2 neurologists who have agreed to this, they're the only nerves that go directly back to the memory center of the brain, the hippocampus, without any interference or screening. Every other nerve gets screened before it gets into the brain, not olfactory nerves. Why? Because our ancestors, when they find something to eat, they grab it and they go to see if it's okay to eat. They'd smell it. They have to have immediate recognition. Or if they're walking down the path, they smell saber-toothed tiger, they better turn around really quick, really quick. So olfactory nerves, smell, was a protection mechanism for our ancestors. So the nerves of smell, they go straight back to the memory center. When you lose your sense of smell, it is an indicator, a temperature gauge. You got a problem in your memory center. It's not a problem of the nose. It's a problem of the hippocampus. So we came up with this test with the University of Pennsylvania that has 97% reproducibility, meaning you can repeat it again and again. It's right on the money every time. So this is like a lottery ticket. You scratch the bottom of it and you go, and it asks you, is that tomato, menthol, strawberry, or licorice? And then you turn and so you answer it here. And then you turn the page, scratch it. Is it cherry, honey, lime, or whiskey? And you answer it in the yellow box here. And then you turn the page and you scratch it. And is it baby powder, banana, chili, or clove? And you answer it in the green, and you do all 12 of them. So you have the answer sheet, and here's the answers. If you score 9 or more correct, don't worry about it. You're in good shape. Check it every couple of years. If you score less than 9 correct, you have hyposmia. That means you're losing your sense of smell. And it's a direct indicator that you're losing the memory cells in the hippocampus. When you get that back and it says, and you do the test and it says, I've got hyposmia, that motivates you to find a doctor who's going to help you explore where is the inflammation coming from that's in your brain right now, killing off your brain cells. Before you're in your 60s or 70s and you've killed off so many brain cells that now you've got dementia. So that's using a temperature gauge. That's one of the things you can do. And that's the cheapest of all. It's like $45 for that. The next thing you can do is a blood test that looks at markers of antibodies to your brain. And that's called the neural zoomer, because you zoom in on the problem. And the neural zoomer plus looks at 46 markers of brain inflammation. But now you're talking a few $100s, and more expense, and they're harder to interpret. You need a doctor to help you with that. I mean, my team does it all the time. We see people on Skype and we work with a lot of people. But blood tests are more comprehensive, more sensitive, and more expensive. But the smell test is a no-brainer. It's easy to do. Anybody can do that.
So what are some ways that we can take this inflammation down that we have?
You have to change the lifestyle causing the inflammation. You can't just take an anti-inflammatory pill, whether it's a pharmaceutical or a nutraceutical. You have to explore, where is the inflammation coming from? And the most common source of inflammation is what's on the end of your fork. What you eat.
So what you're eating.
That's right. That's why we recommend for everyone, initially they do the wheat zoomer and the neural zoomer plus. They do those two tests because it's so everyone has a problem with wheat, whether you feel it or not. Every human gets leaky gut every time they eat wheat. When you read the science, it's really clear. But you have an entire new body every 7 years. Every cell in your body regenerates. Some cells are really quick, like the inside of your guts every 2 to 3 days. Some cells are really slow, like bone cells and brain cells, but they all regenerate. So when you eat wheat, you tear the lining of the gut, but it heals. Within 2-3 days, you feel fine. So you have a toast for breakfast, you tear the lining, it heals. You have a sandwich for lunch, you tear the lining, it heals. You have pasta for dinner, you tear the lining, it heals. Day after week after month, until one day, you don't heal anymore.
Yeah.
That's called loss of oral tolerance. Now you got the leaky gut. And that's the gateway into the development of autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid, psoriasis, MS, alopecia, systemic sclerosis, lupus. You've got a leaky gut before those things can happen. And so you want to identify, do I have a leaky gut? So the wheat zoomer looks at wheat and leaky gut. And then the neural zoomer plus gives you the information about your brain. Do you have inflammation in your brain?
Okay. So eating salmon, or do we need more good fats?
Yeah. Well, it depends on your current food choices as to what needs to be modified, but you got to get away from thinking, if I eat more salmon, is my brain going to be fine? Or if I take more coconut, is my brain going to be fine? You have to stop thinking that way. We were born and raised with that kind of logic. I mean, what's that cabinet called in the bathroom of the house? What's that cabinet?
The medicine cabinet.
Exactly. By the time we're born, we've been trained to think about medicine. Why isn't it the health cabinet? How come it's not where we keep our vitamins?
I like that. That's great.
Yeah, we've been trained this way. So should I eat more salmon? Well, of course you should. It's wild, not farm raised. Farm raised makes you worse. Right. But the way to enhance your brain function is to identify what's causing the inflammation in your brain. And that's not easy. That's not simple. It's not convenient, but it's like, wake up. 1 out of every 3 elders dies with dementia. What makes you think, listener, that's not going to be you? Well, I eat salmon once a week, so that's not going to be. Oh, really? When's the last time you forgot where you put your keys?
Oh, yeah, right. Or why you walked into a room.
That's right. That's exactly right. Those are telltale signs that you're already, the boulder's running downhill. And, oh, it's not too bad. I'm just getting older. Well, how old are you? I'm 42. No, that's not supposed to happen. That's the temperature gauge bumping up against the red zone. And people don't like to hear this. Sorry. But, you can't be nice anymore. I tell doctors all the time, stop being nice. Patients are not your friends. Be kind, not nice. Nice is, oh, I don't want to make waves. I don't want to make anybody feel bad. Kind is compassion, is authenticity with compassion. So you have to be kind, but you got to tell them the truth. The truth is we're killing the planet. Our best scientists at the National Academy of Science says there's no science to protect the planet. 50 to 70 years from now, humans won't be living here. That's what they're telling us right now. It's like, wake up. This is not a community college that's telling us this information. This is National Academy of Science. These are our very best. And we still drive our Cadillac Escalades. And we still use saran wrap to wrap our leftover corn on the cob or our chicken. And we're still using nail. I like the color, and the organic stuff doesn't look as nice. And so you get phthalates, and then you get pregnant, and your baby's brain doesn't have a shot towards getting straight A's. It's like, wake up. Sorry.
I've heard, I love it. I love it when somebody's passionate about what they know best. What can we do for a leaky brain? I've heard of leaky gut, but I didn't realize we could have leaky brain.
Oh, yeah, it's very common. Anytime you've got a leaky gut, you also have a leaky brain. You also do. If the tests come back and say you got leaky gut, you've also got leaky brain, because the markers they're looking at, the antibodies that identify leaky gut, those tissues are part of the blood-brain barrier also. And so you've got leaky brain. So what you do for the leaky brain is what you do for the leaky gut. That's the starting point. First thing, all degenerative diseases, as far as I know, all diseases that develop over time, degenerative diseases, are diseases of inflammation. At the cellular level, the cell is always on fire. The question is it a kidney cell or a brain cell? Is it gasoline or kerosene? So the first thing you do is stop throwing gasoline on the fire. Well, what does that mean? It means you have to find out what's causing your inflammation. You have to read the book. You have to read my book and figure it out. I mean, it's not number 1 in 7 categories on Amazon for brain function. There's a reason why it's number 1 in 7 categories. Is because I give you all these analogies and these examples, and you say, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I don't like it, but that makes sense, right? And so that you start learning. The best thing, Linda, the best thing that you could do, in my opinion, in terms of your audience and all the thousands of people that follow you, the best thing would be is if you can empower them to investigate for themselves what's throwing gasoline on the fire. Nothing is going to be more impactful than you learning for yourself, listener, what your body says is a problem. There's a really good book out there called The Plant Paradox. It's a good book. It's about a category of plants called lectins. And many, many foods have lectins in them. And the author says nobody should eat lectins ever. Well, I respectfully disagree. Those that have a problem with lectins, where they create inflammation, should never eat lectins. Well, how do you know? You do the lectin zoomer, the blood test that zooms in on lectins, and you find out if you've got a lectin problem, you stop eating lectins. But if you don't, people have been eating lectins for tens of thousands of years, right? And we have enzymes to break down lectins, usually, but not all the time. Not all the time. So there's no one food. The only food that we all should give up is the only food we have to test for, everyone, is wheat, because it causes intestinal permeability or the leaky gut in everyone eventually. So if you do the wheat zoomer and it comes back okay, and your immune system is working well, so it's an accurate test. You know, if your immune system's on strike, there's no blood test that's going to be helpful. You know, you have to figure out other ways. When I say your immune system's on strike, it means you have a deficiency of antibodies. Your body is not making enough antibodies. If that's the case, don't spend the money on the tests, because, you know, you're not going to get accurate answers. But if you have a well-functioning immune system, then you do the test. And if it says you got a problem with wheat, you got a problem with, well, I feel fine when I eat wheat. Well, that's because only 1 out of 8 have gut problems when you eat wheat. 7 out of 8 don't have gut problems. They've got brain problems or kidney problems or liver problems. And you can't feel when you've got elevated antibodies to myelin, killing off the myelin in your brain. That's MS. Eventually, that's MS, but it takes years before you get a diagnosis of MS. but you can identify the mechanism years and years in advance. So the best thing that your listeners, everyone that's listening to this, the very best thing you could do is allocate 1 hour a week to learning a little more about your environment and the toxicity of your environment, whether it's what's on the end of your fork or what's in the air that you're breathing or what you're putting on your body. 1 hour a week, and in 6 months, you've got this down. You've really learned a lot and you've changed a lot and you're feeling a whole lot better. That's the only way to do this. All the rest of it is commentary. And I talk a lot about how important diets are. I've been a nutritionist for 40 years, and it's critically important that you take coenzyme Q10 or vitamin C or minerals. Those are critically important things, but they're not going to fix the development of disease. The development of disease now primarily is because of the incredible load of toxins in our bodies and that we're passing on to the next generation.
So what about electromagnetic pollution? All of our devices, we're going to bed with them, we're waking up by alarm, we're on our laptops, their computers. How is that affecting our brains?
Never in the history of humans have humans been exposed to this type of pollution like we have now with electromagnetic pollution. Now, there is no evidence that the amount of radiation that comes from a cell phone is harmful for humans. But agreed, there's no evidence, but it's accumulative over time. And it's all of the, you go to a restaurant and you look for a wireless network. If it's in a mall, you get 15 or 20 different wireless networks that pop up on your phone. That means there's 15 or 20 different wireless wavelength patterns hitting your brain, hitting your body. And those things are accumulative over time. And there's so many studies. In the 1950s, the articles were on the front page of the paper all over the country said, the government says there's no problem with above ground atomic blasts in Nevada. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. In the 1960s, in the front page of every paper in the country, the government says there's no problem with smoking. As a matter of fact, Camels are the brand that doctors recommend most. In the 1970s, it was margarine, and margarine is safe for you. In every decade, there's a new thing that we're told is safe for us, and obviously it's a problem. You can't put a bad, my first month in my medical education, 1978, I saw that this doctor was coming from Arizona, Dr. Sheldon Deal, Mr. Arizona. I said, oh, the guy's a bodybuilder, healthy guy. I'll go listen to him speak. So that was when color televisions had first come out. He had a color television on a stand in the room, turned it on, but kept the volume off. Cool picture on the screen. Walks over to a table, opens his briefcase, takes out a bar magnet, the size of a cell phone, holds it up like this, walks up to the color television. The picture turns upside down. Walks away, it goes back. Walks towards it, it goes upside down. Walks away, it goes back. And he said, that's what electromagnetic pollution does to your brain. It switches you, it disorients you. That's all the people that write their nines backwards or say right when they mean left, or they put their shoe on the wrong foot. It's called neurological switching. And that was the first indicators that we recognized back in the late 70s of electromagnetic pollution and what it was doing to the body. And some people back then were the yellow canaries in the coal mine, and they were affected more than others. But today, everyone's affected. And we now know that electromagnetic pollution may be the trigger for your brain inflammation and the development, or maybe the trigger for your joint inflammation and the development of rheumatoid. The list goes on, and just read the science. It's really clear. Well, there's no evidence that the amount of radiation that you're exposed to harms humans. Agreed, but it's accumulative on the body. And it's a big, big problem. So every night, turn the wireless off before you go to sleep. You don't need it on. when you're sleeping. Turn your phone on airplane mode. Better yet, shut it down. Give it a break. But every night you do that just because it's a little baby step. Remember 1 hour a week? When I sign books, when I autograph books, it's always the same thing. Base hits win the ball game. Every base hit that you do wins the ball game. So I'm going to challenge you now, Linda Mitchell, that in a week or 2 weeks, you're going to come back on your Facebook Live here with people, and you're going to tell them that you found a new organic lipstick that doesn't have phthalates in it.
Now you're really putting me out.
That's right. That's right. I'm calling you out. That's right. Because you're a model for others. And you'll talk about what a pain in the butt it was. I had to look this stuff up, and it's not easy to find, but companies that have these products, like Anne Marie is a great company. They're friends of mine. But there are many companies out there, and they're proud to say they're phthalate free, they're organic, right? But it takes a little bit of effort. Remember, just 1 hour a week. So you just take a little time to do that. And for those of you young women who are fertile and want to have babies in your future, if you continue using your regular nail polish, shame on you, because you're affecting your baby's brain. You're very likely affecting the ability of your future baby's brain to develop properly. And we need a lot of Einsteins to help us save the planet. We don't need bozos.
Speaking of which, you brought this up. I found it so fascinating in your book about the size of the forehead and the research around that. Can you explain that to the audience?
Sure. If you you go from the bottom of the chin to the bottom of the nose, and again, it should hit the hairline. Mine doesn't. I have a large forehead. That is a consistent indicator of a sensitivity to wheat, usually celiac disease, whether it's manifesting or not. And you just read the science and you look at the pictures and the research articles, you say, wow, I didn't know that. And they say in the articles, it's critically important to identify this early in children, because if you get to them before the age of 5 and you put them on a gluten-free diet, they don't develop the large foreheads that their older brothers and sisters have. They develop a more symmetrical skull, which just helps the brain to work better and send the messages out through the openings in the skull to the rest of our body.
That's pretty cool science.
Yeah, it really is. You see the pictures, they're really quite remarkable.
What is molecular mimicry?
Your immune system is designed to protect you. That's all it does. That's its purpose. And there's an Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, IGA, IGG, IGE, IGM, different branches of the armed forces. When your immune system gets activated to protect you, the way that these antibodies that are produced to protect you, let's say the antibody to wheat, it's trained. So the antibodies are produced, they go out into the bloodstream. Your bloodstream's just a highway. There's lots of traffic on the highway, and there's no lanes of traffic. Everything's bouncing around in there. It's going the same way, but it's all bouncing around, clashing into each other, right? Like driving in New Delhi, India. There's 4 lanes, but there's 7 lanes of cars. It's unbelievable, these people there. I'm not exaggerating. They pull the side view mirrors in so that they still have side view mirrors. I just can't use them when they're going on those streets, right? Because they're so close to each other. So the antibodies, if you make antibodies to wheat, for example, they go out into the bloodstream and they're trained to look for a certain protein signature of wheat. Let's say it's an orange vest. So the antibodies are going through the bloodstream looking for orange vests, and they fire their chemical bullets to destroy the wheat molecules, the orange vests. The orange vests are made, they're proteins in wheat, and proteins are made up of building blocks called amino acids. All protein is amino acids. Now, The blood goes everywhere in your body. So now the blood's going past, I'll say, your thyroid. So it's going past the thyroid. The surface of the thyroid facing the bloodstream is made up of proteins and fats. The proteins are made up of hundreds of amino acids. That's normal. Now here comes the antibodies against wheat looking for the protein signature of wheat. I'll say it's AABCD. You know, there are many different letters to the amino acids. Let's just say AABCD. And the antibodies are looking for AABCD everywhere they go. Now they come past the thyroid, and the surface of the thyroid is made up of proteins, which include AABCD as part of the protein structure. So now the antibodies fire their chemical bullet at the thyroid, damaging that thyroid cell. That's molecular mimicry. Now your immune system has to make antibodies to get rid of the old or the damaged thyroid cells. Remember, you have an entire new body every 7 years. The way it happens is that antibodies to your thyroid get rid of old thyroid cells, and make room for new cells. But now you've got damaged cells. You have to make more antibodies to thyroid to get rid of the damaged cells to make room for new cells. So you eat toast for breakfast, antibodies to AABCD. Sandwich for lunch, antibodies to AABCD firing at the thyroid, if that's your genetic vulnerability. Pasta for dinner, antibodies to AABCD firing to the thyroid, if that's your genetic vulnerability. And day after day after day, killing off thyroid cells, killing off thyroid cells. Now the antibodies to thyroid to get rid of those old and damaged cells until eventually those antibodies become self-perpetuate. Now you have an autoimmune thyroid disease called Hashimoto's. Or if the genetic vulnerability is to your brain, so the AABCD goes after the tissue in your brain, now you get an autoimmune disease of your brain. And that's where the neural Zoomer Plus test comes in to see do you have antibodies to your brain. Because that's killing off the myelin. That's MS. That's killing off your cerebellum. That's old people that can't walk up and down the stairs anymore. And the list goes on and on. Only 1 out of 8 people have gut problems from wheat. The rest have problems in their brain or their joints or their thyroid or their skin or their muscles.
My last
books
question.
are really cool. My books are really cool. They really are. And you know, the first book called The Autoimmune Fix, for anyone that's concerned about autoimmunity, get that book. It won the National Book Award, which is like, yes.
Awesome.
And you know,
awesome.
but it really is because we have to save the planet, and everyone needs to be educated about these concepts in a way that they can understand and implement into their lives. Base hits win the ball game. Every week, 1 hour a week, you have another base hit, and then another base hit, and then another base hit, and then another base hit every week. And eventually, like summertime, so you're using mosquito spray. Oh my God, is that stuff toxic? But you're going to spend an hour 1 week and you're going to learn about what are the natural things to repel mosquitoes, right? Every week you learn something new.
Yeah, I mean, your book is power packed. There's so much information in there. You can't digest it all in one sitting. And I'm a speed reader. I'm a speed reader, but I could not digest it all in one sitting.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I take that as a compliment because this is not to be entertained. This is to give you tools that you can implement. And so you do it over time. I mean, 1 hour a week, that's the only way I know that people can be successful in changing the way they're living their lives.
Wow, this has been an awesome conversation today. And I thank you so much for joining us all the way from Italy. And what are 3 tips that you could leave the audience today?
Everyone's going to be wondering in 2 weeks what lipstick you found. That's the list.
Oh my God, you have no idea. It's like my trademark.
I get it. Well, just find one that's natural. Find one that's or, you know, they'll put it on your tombstone. She loved her lipstick, right? So.
Now you sound like something my dad would say. Oh my God, he would say.
Okay, what's something that you can do? In England, they call it stewed apples. Here we call it applesauce. So you take 4 or 5 apples, wash them, always organic. Don't buy apples if they're not organic. It's the #1 fruit for toxic pesticides and insecticides if it's not organic. So buy 4 or 5 apples, wash them, cut out the seeds, dice them up, bite-sized bits, throw them in a pot. And if there's this much apples, 1/3 of the height of the apples in water, pour water in there to 1/3 the height of the apples. Add some cinnamon, maybe a few raisins if you like raisins. Turn it on high. Boil 8, 10, 12 minutes. Look in there. When you see a shine on the skin of the apple, they're done. Turn off the heat. They're done. The shine is the pectin in the apple that's been released. And it's easy now for the bacteria in your gut to access that pectin in the small intestine. The pectin fuels the production of the most powerful hormone in your gut called intestinal alkaline phosphatase. This substance does so many good things for you. Reduces cholesterol, reduces triglycerides, stabilizes blood sugar, feeds the good bacteria, helps the good bacteria bind onto your gut wall, turns the genes on to heal leaky gut, kills parasites, reduces what's called endotoxemia by 73%, means toxins getting into your bloodstream. And so that's intestinal alkaline phosphatase. But this is the reason why an apple a day keeps the doctor away, is because you increase intestinal alkaline phosphatase. And then you have 2 forkfuls every day. I mean, you more if you want, but have just at least a couple forkfuls every day. You're feeding the IAP in your gut, which feeds good bacteria, kills the bad bacteria. It's just a helpful, easy base hit that you can do for the rest of your life.
Totally awesome. I love apples and I have them every day. So is the best way is to cook them like that? You're going to get more benefit?
Yes, because the raw apple, the pectin gets released further down in the digestion. Your digestive tract's 20, 25 feet long. So the apples get released further down into your digestive tract, which is the pectin gets released. And that's not a problem, except it's the small intestine where you really want the benefit the most, because that's where the leaky gut first occurs.
Awesome. Wow, this has been so great today. I just want to thank you so much for coming on. And where can everybody reach you on social media? And again, where can they get your book?
Yeah, well, thank you. It's thedr.com, thedoctor.com. Just don't spell the word doctor out, thedr.com. And the books are on the front page. You can see them there. It'll route you to Amazon or other like Books A Million or some other places, but you can then download some extra handouts we have for you. And the smell test is thedr.com/smell. And then there's 5 studies that you can get there on smell that you can share with your doctor, because I can promise you doctors don't know about this.
It's amazing. I love the name of your website. That's very clever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And thank you so much, Dr. Tom.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.